pleasure to be joining you back on this edition of the India Development Debate. I'm Supriya Shrinate, and late last night, India's aviation regulator, the DGCA, jumped on the Boeing controversy and instructed all the domestic airlines to ground their Boeing 737 MAX aircraft and send them back to the maintenance hub. The DGCA has today said that all airlines have agreed not to raise fares in the wake of this decision, and connectivity will not be affected due to the grounding. The impact will be high on SpiceJet, the airline, which has over a 12% market share in India and operates 12 of those aircraft. What does this mean? Why did India take so long? How will training be now impacted? What will this mean for consumers? Will there be people who will be stranded across airports? Will we see, fares go to the roof? Many questions, but I've got a stellar panel here to answer some of them. And I've got Captain Mohan Ranganathan, the aviation safety consultant, Couple Calls CEO and Director CAPA South Asia, Captain S.S. Panesar, ex-Director Indian Airlines, and of course Harshvardhan, former MD Vayudut and Chairman Star Air Consulting. So thank you all of you for joining us. And if I may begin with you, Captain, Mr. Mohan Ranganathan, the DGCA late last night announced that all Boeing 737 MAX 8 will be grounded today. What do you believe prompted the DGCA to take action? Because there was almost this element of being sanguine till last evening, that we are waiting, we are talking to regulators. Do you believe this is public outcry? And the question also is, why should it have taken so long? This is, after all, about consumer safety.
I think it is more of public outcry, and when there was worldwide grounding, and they were pushing the limits by not grounding it earlier, but they actually made themselves a laughing stock by first saying it's grounded immediately. That's what the minister tweeted, and then permitting the aircraft to fly till 4 o'clock this evening. It made a mockery of their commitment to safety. Because when you say that you're grounding it because it's unsafe, there is no concession given for an unsafe aircraft to fly. And to say that it was to bring the aircraft back to the maintenance base, I can understand if he had allowed that Hong Kong, Delhi or Dubai, Delhi flight. But to allow domestic flights with passengers, or if you're having a position flight, you should say that this will operate empty, no passengers. That is how positioning flights are done. So by allowing an airline to operate with passengers, they've actually risked the lives of those passengers. If anything had happened, they would have been held to pay. And this is what the DGCA does not understand. They are trying to bend over backwards only to help the airlines, but they don't have safety as a priority.
Okay. No, I understand. This should have been done earlier. And of course, the other question is, why did our airline operators not take that cue? But to you, sir, Mr. Panesar, I'll come to you. The flying coffins is what some experts are calling this. It was only after aviation regulators from Europe, Indonesia, China, Australia, UK, South America grounded Boeing 737 MAX jet did India react. A majority of the 737 MAX planes in the world had to be pulled off air before Indian bureaucrats could wake up and react to this. What really were they waiting for? And like Mohan Ranganathan points out, it wasn't done, in the best way possible. The aviation minister tweeted immediately, then they were allowed to operate till 4 p.m. Why on earth were you carrying passengers? Why could those, aircraft not be empty? Many questions still remain.
Well, I would like to stay still. There is a premature decision because the manufacturer and the Federal Aviation Administration, who have given the final approval for this aircraft to fly the world over, they have not come out with the cause. The DGCA, nobody knows the reason for this crash, only because the other airlines are grounding, so they are grounding this airline on the safety grounds. But I only wish they could have waited for a little more time, let the Boeing people come, because they must be working day and night to find out the cause. They have found out the digital flight data recorder, which records more than 170 parameters. It will come out the exact cause of the crash, and they should come and tell the public to build the confidence. If it requires any modification, the Boeing company should do that also. But without any reason and all that grounding the aircraft, I don't think there is any sense in grounding, because the crashes do take place. And it could be the pilot's error, it could be the aircraft maintenance, it could be so many other reasons. But this readout of DFDR will come out and tell them what is the basic reason for this crash. And no creating a panic and all that by grounding and all that. By grounding, the aircraft doesn't become safe unless they find out the cause of the accident and what is the exact reason for the failure of the engine or airframe or anything. And I don't think DGCA has any experts to give reason why they are grounding on this factor they are grounding. They are just grounding because the other airlines are grounding. Nobody, our Secretary of Civil Aviation should have contacted the Boeing company immediately. The government should have contacted the Boeing company. Federal Aviation has not grounded the aircraft in the USA. You must say their life is not important or safe. We should have waited for the Boeing company and then ground these aircraft. This aircraft is a modern aircraft.
Okay, so Mr. Panesar, give me a minute. Okay. Mr. Panesar, give me a minute. You raise an important point, but I think that point is being widely contested, if I may. And before I go across to Kapil Kaul, I will go back to Mohan Ranganathan, who has a very different view on this. And Mohan Ranganathan, in many ways, do you believe, do you at all agree with Mr. Panesar? Because he's of the view that we should have waited and this was in some sense a knee-jerk reaction. Or do you believe the security of the passenger is paramount, and why should we keep waiting for cues from the FAA? I mean, there is a reason why the US is going to take time to react to this one, that the rest of the world is taking cues and reacting. And you know, of course, Europe and China and UK, everybody is banned it. There is still no conclusive evidence on what is wrong with the aircraft. I mean, yes, people have said that the MCAS software is to be blamed, but there is nothing conclusive, so to say. So, I mean, is there any merit in the argument that Boeing should have been heard before we took this action?
No, I totally disagree with Captain Panesar. You know, first of all, FAA, in fact, he should go and read an article written by John Ostrova in an issue called Air Current, where he has given a detailed analysis. And he has pointed out one very pertinent point, which I mentioned in one of the shows yesterday, that if one American had died in Lion Air crash or the Ethiopian crash, FAA would have leapt to the ground and grounded the aircraft, because they would have been taken to the cleaners in the US courts. It's because no American has died, they are protecting the Boeing interest. Now let me come to the technical point. Like he says, there is no conclusive proof. Now, in both flights, Lion Air as well as the Ethiopian, the pilots have reported flight control problems and they want to return. It is not as though it took them by surprise. They were struggling with the aircraft, and it was a system which Boeing had introduced because they knew it is not the same as NG, as I mentioned yesterday. It has got a larger engine, it's moved forward of the wing. So it has been causing a lot of pitch up, and to prevent the pitch up, they introduced the MCAS. Now, you know, the stabilizer is a very, very powerful thing, and if it moves nose down close to the ground, like what happened in the Ethiopian thing, he was hardly 1300 feet, and 10 seconds if the stabilizer moves down, and the crater is almost 50 feet deep. Now, to create that kind of a dive from 1300 feet, there is definitely something seriously wrong with the aircraft. It is not, see, no manufacturer is going to tell you that something is wrong with the aircraft. Now take for instance, after the Indian Airline 320 crash, yes, the government grounded the entire fleet, but then when the report came out, they said it's a pilot error. The training was not done. No manufacturer gives you complete training. After the crash, in fact, the Indian Airlines training department took it. Now here, I can show you the SpiceJet conversion checklist. and you'll be shocked that there is not a single exercise for the MCAS, and that is what is being approved by DGCA. And why FAA is not, you will find that the rest of the world are not fools. It's not that India has done it, but
Captain Mohan Ranganathan, you're right that the rest of the world is not a fool, but let me just quickly get the Indian impact and what will it mean for our markets before I go back to why is US not acting, and I will come to you on that and also come to Captain Panesar on this. Kapil Kaur, welcome to the show. How is this going to impact the Indian aviation market? I mean, SpiceJet has over a 12% market share. It operates about 737. How is this going to impact as far as connectivity is concerned? And I'm going to talk fares next with you. But just to understand, how does this sort of impact the aviation space right now? Kapil.
So, Supriya, good evening. Number one is that the in-service fleet of MAX is about 13 or 12 or 13. So on a very large narrow-bodied fleet size that we have, it shouldn't make an impact at an industry level. But at a SpiceJet level, it will have a significant impact. But at an industry level, I don't think it's going to have a significant impact with just about 13 planes. But we have to also keep in mind that Spice has a very aggressive delivery pipeline. So this 13 needs to be factored in with the deliveries that will get impacted, at least because by the time these modifications are in place and approved, it may take a few weeks. So at least I would think for Q1, the challenges in induction for new deliveries will happen. That will be the impact on SpiceJet. But if we see this combined with the fact that Jet has grounded closer to 50 planes, aircraft at Go are grounded, and some Indigo are grounded because of pilot shortage. If you combine all that, and combine that we have an election which has its own demand upside, and then we have a Q1, which is the peak period coming, we will surely have an impact on at least the fares, because the airlines are doing almost 85–90% occupancy. So with demand, with supply contraction, I think the fares are bound to go up, and which is natural. How higher it will go needs to be seen unless until government intervenes. But you will see significantly at least the D7 to D1 window becoming very aggressive. And we will see possibly other even before D7, all the whether it's D15, D30, they will become expensive as well. So industry impact is will be visible. It was before this grounding, but with this grounding, it will further challenge the capacity, thereby impacting fares. That I expect logical. The only thing that we need to keep in mind that if the resolution plan at Jet doesn't get approved, then the international impact would be severe as well, because if they were to ground wide-bodied airlines or further curtail their international operations, I would think that impact would be severe as well. So quite a challenge going ahead for the industry in terms of these multiple issues that have all surfaced together.
No, but if I can take a quick follow-up with you before I move on to the rest of the panel, Kapil. You're right, we will perhaps see an impact on fares, and this grounding is going to perhaps impact at least 70 to 80 daily departures in India itself. What sort of an increase could we see in fares? Because this is a sort of a low travel season. Could that impact be muted, or do you believe there will perhaps not be a short-term impact, but like you said, over the long term, depending on how Jet's problems evolve and what happens, the impact could be a lot different?
So I think it depends upon how long will the modification take, because the early advice that we have, it's going to take a few weeks. So it possibly could spill over the entire Q1, and there's no guarantee that those modifications or the new package that Boeing is working will be fixed in the next few weeks. So the few weeks could be more than potentially 3 months. So that direction we don't have. So right now, in the month of March, right up to 15th April, we are challenged because we have 2 airports which have runway advisories, and thereby the fares are already up to Bombay and maybe Bangalore. That will be there till end of March. And then April onwards, the season starts. So I think right up to the end of Q1, we may see significant spikes in fares. Now it depends upon the industry to see that how much can it be moderated. But the logical will be there'll be significant upward revision in fares.
Okay, significant revision upwards in fare. I think Harshvardhan also joins us here on the show, and thanks very much, Harshvardhan, for being with us. We are talking, sir, about the aviation space, so to say, and right now really putting the lens through the consumer angle. So if I may, that SpiceJet operates about 500 flights. Of this, around 30 will be affected. DGCA has instructed them that while cancelling, they should ensure connectivity isn't affected for sectors. And I think SpiceJet also issued a statement saying that they will refund customers and all of that. Cancellation should normally take place on multiple sectors. But what sort of an impact do you believe this is going to have, and will some of this be practically manageable? And I think one of the things that I want to ask the panel really is that while we can, while we are blaming the DGCA for acting late, we are calling out the Indian bureaucracy, but what about the aircraft? I mean, what about the airline operators themselves? Why could they not take a high moral ground and ground their fleet on their own? I mean, there were airlines around the world that did so. Why did the regulator have to instruct for this to come through? Mr. Harshvardhan.
I think there are two aspects of your question. Firstly, we look at the fare mechanism, which is a kind of predatory approach by all the airlines in India, particularly, these are what we consider the byproducts of privatization. So anytime there is a cause of human misery, they are the first one to exploit it. Though DGCA and ministry always keep claiming that they have instructed them to be fair and not to take advantage of situation, but I have not seen in the past it is happening. If the government is very serious, like they did a major press conference today, they should put a ceiling on upper fare level so that the passengers know what is the threshold level. Now, coming to the situation, how it will peter out, if the fare mechanism continues to be high, the traffic will drop down. It will have an impact in the immediate term, as it is because of the grounding of Jet Airways aircrafts, Indigo cancelling some 30 odd flights a day, and also the advisory on major airports. There are constraints for passengers for which some impact was already there, and a significant impact was there. Now, coming to this grounding, I don't see it is such a significant thing, because out of 800 aircraft we are operating, we are only talking about 12 aircraft, which is less than 1.5% capacity. So, industry is not so challenged for this particular issue. Even for the SpiceJet, it is a fleet size of 12, and they still have another 72 aircraft, so which is roughly about less than 10% of the capacity, or 10 to 12% of the capacity. And if the operator wants in the short run, they can always increase the capacity utilization and adjust the passengers. So, I think it is not such a major thing unless they want to exploit it. It is a manageable situation. And in the past, I have seen that whenever the airlines have tried to go becoming unreasonable in fare mechanism, the traffic drops significantly. As it is in last 1 year, we have seen that the growth of traffic has slowed down.
Okay.
Any impact, any effort to capitalize on it will have a detrimental effect. Now, coming to the fact that why did SpiceJet not ground it? Usually, our own experience with the
you have to make it fast. Yeah.
But unless you are directly, unless you are directly affected by it,
give me a
most
second,
of
sir.
the operators don't do it, because
Okay, let me take this across to Captain Panesar. And Captain Panesar, I think the point that Mr. Harshvardhan was making is that unless you're going to be directed by the regulator, you don't really act on it. There are airlines around the world, and there are examples that they have. They've put the passenger security paramount and acted. Our operators fail to, and sometimes you wonder whether they should have. But a quick question, and this has to be on the fares. The regulator has said that they will step in if there's predatory pricing, and they will review fares in the next 2 days, and all airlines have apparently agreed not to raise fares. But is this practical? And because market pricing is that market determines the price and aviation is not a regulated sector. It is a free sector. From a perspective point of view, can the regulator do anything at all, or do you believe forbearance can come into effect and they can impact the fares in the next few days? Captain Pane, sir.
In these two things, let me tell you, the airline has its own mechanism of engineering department which are answerable to the regulatory body. They keep a track of the snags of the aircraft. Every day they monitor the performance of the aircraft. They have computerized monitoring section, all the airlines, compulsory by DGCA. So if they find anything wrong, the airline will definitely ground that aircraft for the particular flight. Now, regarding coming to the fare structure and all that, I think Secretary of Civil Aviation has called a meeting, has given assurance, and I think they should act tough also with the airline that they should not increase the fare because some airlines, few aircraft are grounded. They can control the price because they are the person who give license to these private operators to operate in India. So they should control the rise in the prices also. Why not? They should not let them, because the few aircraft are grounded, so they can increase the price to any limit and all that. It is up to the regulatory body. I think Secretary has assured, and he has called, I think, we're meeting all the airlines that they will maintain the fare structure also. I have come to know about this only today only. I think Ministry has to be active in this thing.
I'm not so sure if that can really be done. Okay. Couple call very quickly. A, do you believe that's doable, or do you believe it should best be left to market forces? You know, is the DGCA and the Civil Aviation Ministry going to actively step in? And I think one of the questions that I want to ask is that 23 Air India planes are not flying due to wear and tear. Indigo has cancelled 30 flights, like you had already said, due to pilot shortage. Jet has grounded 54 of its fleet of 119. Go Air also has is not operating some planes. I mean, club this with the Boeing 737 of SpiceJet being grounded. It looks like Indian aviation is in a serious pocket of turbulence there. Would you agree right now?
No, I think the economic conditions around which the airlines will see themselves for next fiscal are going to be pretty positive. Yes, their challenges are that you have closer to 100 planes on ground for a variety of reasons. That could be pilot shortage, could be funding challenge, could be lack of funds for spare parts, and in the season this gets reflected in higher fares. So logically, when the capacity is contracted so significantly, it has an impact on fares. So I'm not very sure under what ground. I don't agree that airlines have been, have profited because the net recoveries, under recoveries per passenger is so significant. There's a closer to $10 billion losses over 15 years. So if anybody says that airlines are profiteering, I think that's not logical to me. And for DGCA to intervene is again not logical. I don't know under what conditions will the DGCA intervene. It's a free market. Market forces are best determined, and the only thing you can advise is self-regulation to these airlines, who would have to take judgment calls on to what extent they should go in terms of the fare increase, because there is going to be a pressure from the market. Elections are creating its own momentum. The Q1 season will create its own momentum. So the airlines will have to take a judgment call as to where to lead this to. But I don't know under what circumstances would DGC intervene and tell them it is profiteering, and what is a fare which is the benchmark for profiteering? Who will determine that? Under what logic will it be determined? So I don't agree to that. And I don't think we should agree to the fact also that the airlines have been profiteering, because in the last 15 years, the 10 billion plus losses that the industry suffered has directly gone to creating a consumer surplus. The whole economy has benefited. So I don't see that how logical it is to see the fares are up, because we are still we have the lowest fare regime in the world. And I don't see why, and DGCA shouldn't intervene. It can advise the airlines to make sure that they have self-regulation and see their consumer interest. But any regulatory advice in this regard will be unfortunate, I would say.
Okay. Just give me a minute right now, because I want to go across to Captain Mohan Ranganathan and then take a quick closing question with Mr. Harshvardhan. And Captain Mohan Ranganathan, the top 10 countries by air passenger travel, all but US and Japan have banned the 737 MAX. As regulators around the world lose faith in this particular aircraft, why is America continuing to insist it is airworthy? I mean, the obvious reason is that Boeing is an American company, and which is perhaps why it is not being grounded just yet. And you've already alluded to this, but this is a prestigious US company. Do you believe that is the one sole reason why America is not acting? Because usually the American regulator, the FAA, is very, very quick to react as far as passenger security and everything else is concerned.
You see, apart from the fact that that's a very big American company and they're protecting it, like after the Lion Air crash, the United Airlines pilots, they said they've been trained. The American Airlines pilots say they've been trained on that aircraft and they were aware of MCAS. But the rest of the world, nobody I've seen the Jet Airways manuals, I've seen the SpiceJet manuals, I've seen several other airlines. There's not a word mentioned about MCAS or what is the new feature. But what is most important, why DGCA might have been late in grounding the aircraft. Look at it, apart from UK, EASA, France, Germany, Oman, now most of the countries on the west have closed the airspace for MAX. Now even if America, like if India didn't, they will not be able to fly the MAX into the country. Even to bring it to fly it inside India, all the airspace in the rest of the world is closed for the MAX. So even if SpiceJet or Jet get the MAX, it's going to be lying in Renton or in Seattle. They will not be able to fly it across. Now, as far as how long it will take, let me tell you, one language that majority of the Indians understand is cricket. And you have this referring to the third umpire, and the field umpire gives a soft signal. Now, this is like getting a soft signal which is out. So, unless there is conclusive evidence that this aircraft is safe, I can tell you that EASA, UK, Australia and others are not going to clear. Boeing and FAA say that the modifications are going to be done by April. But the primary fact is that 2 fatal crashes of brand new aircrafts have taken place within 4 months from low altitude. And where both the pilots have complained that there was flight control problems. So I don't think it is such a simple thing.
Right. Fair point. A quick last question, Mr. Harshvardhan, will come to you on this. There is no timeline as we speak as to, when the problem will be rectified and when will we see the aircraft back in air. These planes were what the companies were really betting on as far as the revival is concerned, given the 20-25% better fuel efficiency was promised on these aircraft. Does that mean that Indian carriers will continue to bleed for a very long while? I mean, given that fuel costs is about 40-45% of the entire cost of operation?
Well, it's anybody's guess, because I can tell you it's not a simple answer now, because unless the modifications are carried out and tested and the cause is duly addressed, the aircraft cannot be put on air again. It's a very major issue now, and India would be the last country among the last countries who will follow the decision, because now EASA and UKCA being involved, I think they will have to firstly satisfy themselves that such a decision is there. Now, so I think it's not a very simple decision. And coming to the carriers' problems, I don't think the fuel efficiency is the only issue. Their price war and the unprecedented expansion, and then the market contraction, and more than that, the Indian government fuel pricing policy is largely responsible for industry losses. We are the only country where fuel prices is going on where the rest of the world is going down. And the question is that with this scenario, I think industry would continue to suffer for some time till the economic conditions improve and the fuel prices come down.
Okay, okay. On that note, completely out of time here. Thank you very, very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Mr. Harshvardhan, Captain Mohan Ranganathan, Captain S.S. Panesar, and of course, Kapil Kaul, as always, joining us. Thank you very much for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. This is a very, very important matter. This concerns passenger safety. The Indian regulator has finally acted. The question is, when will we see those aircraft go back in air? What is Boeing going to do about this? And more importantly, how is this going to change the landscape as far as Indian aviation is concerned? It seems to have hit a pocket of turbulence, all pun intended, and what happens from here on is going to be very closely monitored and watched. Thanks very much for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. There's so much more that's coming up right here on ET Now. Stay tuned for that.